Hello wizards, it's the Wiz, and in this video we're going to be talking about SvelteKit. We're going to talk about why you should use SvelteKit, or if you should. You might not like it, so that's your forte, not mine. Is SvelteKit better than React? We're going to talk about that. I know it's an interesting question because they are just so different in how they perform and how they function, but I'm excited. Let's do it. All right, so what is SvelteKit? SvelteKit, to its core, is a universal server-side, client-side combo JavaScript framework. Some might compare it to Next and Nuxt, and that evaluation is super correct. It is, but at the end of the day, it's just another JavaScript framework for building web applications. The difference is, though, is that it's not a single page application, right? It's got this universal concept to it. So instead of getting one huge payload up front, which consists of all your files all the JavaScript you'll ever need to run and render on the browser, you're making multiple maybe to get some half-baked server-side content and some other content that will be rendered on the client side. So it's kind of the best of two worlds. SvelteKit has been very sweet to me. It's been near and dear to my heart. It's kind of like that food that you look at and you're like, there's no way that's good. Like, here we go again. But then you try it and you get that first taste and you're like, hello. Like, who are you? And it's just clean. It's neat. And you don't even want to look back and go touch anything else because you don't like that kind of food anymore. You like this kind of food. And that's really the feeling that it gives me. But let's get into kind of what's going on here. So within the JavaScript framework world, you've got a few options you can choose from. You can choose from Vue. Vue is nice. Vue's good. You have React, which is considered to be like the holy grail of all single-page applications. You've got Ember, which, to be honest, I have never heard of until I Googled it up the other day, and I'll probably never use it. You've got Angular, which I will, once again, probably never use Angular, but that's because all I hear is people gripe about it, and I don't want to gripe about it too. Then you've got some things like Next and Nuxt that you see on the screen here, and they are different than the four that you see at the top. So the four at the top are considered to be 100% client-side rendering applications. And so what that means is whenever you go to a website, it'll make a request to the server and say, hey, give me some content. And the server responds with a blank HTML page that's got one div with an ID of root, and then it's got a bunch of JavaScript that's sent back with it, and the browser then puts together like puzzle pieces all of the JavaScript components into the HTML, and that renders the DOM. The thing is, that can get expensive. That initial payload up front, that initial request up front, might take some time because you're pulling back all the JavaScript that you will ever need for the remainder of your application. So that's a con, but people say, oh, the pros outweigh the cons. You never have to contact that server again to get more content because you've already got it, hence single page application. Well, Next and Nuxt operate differently. They are what's considered to be universal / server-side rendering plus client-side rendering frameworks. Basically, you can choose what you want. You can choose where you render certain things. If I have some secure stuff that should only stay on the server, I can do that. If I want some really fluid, dynamic rendering, I can throw that on the client side, no problemo. Absolutely, everything's cool. Everything's great. But if you want to be like a bozo, you can always say, oh no, I don't need a framework because I am so smart. And you can clown around with jQuery and vanilla JavaScript all you want, but all you're going to be at the end of the day is a clown. Because in the real enterprise world, we use frameworks. Like it or not, that's what we do. We're not doing document.get element by ID, document.create element. We're not doing that stuff. We're not even with $signs in jQuery doing that unless we're in a framework itself like .NET. All right, enough with the jokes. I'm off my soapbox. But like I said earlier, Nuxt is to Vue as Next is to React, as SvelteKit is to Svelte. Wow, that's a mouthful. And the question isn't really, do you use Svelte or React? It's more of, do you use Svelte or SvelteKit? Do you use React or Next? Do you use Vue or Nuxt? Because at the end of the day, Vue, React, and Svelte, they can accomplish the same thing. It's just your flavor. What flavor do you like at the end of the day? But Nuxt, Next, and SvelteKit are entirely different things. So let's look at the differences between Svelte and SvelteKit. So because Svelte is 100% on the client, you're going to have extremely snappy and responsive UI. It's going to be dynamic and smooth, and that's because it'll make one large network request up front, get all the JavaScript it needs, and never have to make another request to get more JavaScript. Then from there, it can just render as it goes. You don't have to wait. There's no more asynchronous waiting where you click on a button and you got to wait for the content to get back for you. No, you click on the button and immediately takes you to the next page because you already got that data, unless you're code splitting, that is. But also, whenever you do your build, so if you do like an npm run build on it, it will, which I don't even know if that's the command to do it, but it'll build into static files. So it'll build into an HTML and JavaScript files and CSS files that can just be grabbed and run on any browser. If you want, you just throw it on Nginx. You throw it on a web server like Apache. Or you can throw it even into like an S3 bucket on AWS and configure it for static website hosting. That's the benefit to having these build static files. Now for SvelteKit's great. Like SvelteKit's awesome. You get better SEO. So whenever someone Googles up something related to your site, the odds of it being better, there's just better odds. You got SEO. SEO is search engine optimization, if you didn't know. So Google and like Bing and Yahoo or whatever, mostly Google, Microsoft, whatever, they have these spiders that kind of search the web, and this is where they get like the information on your website. So when people search things up, it will use your meta tags or your titles in your HTML to then rank higher on search results. For single page applications like Svelte, it's harder for spiders to do that because it doesn't have as much material to go look at. If you were to go on a website right now and just right click and go to page source, the page source, if it's a single page application, will literally be an empty div. It'll be an empty HTML div. And so the spider, it's hard for it to see or really know the contents of your website. Whereas if it's rendered on the server side and sent up, and let's say it has a title or something attached to it or some meta tags, then the spider can more easily see the keywords related to your site. You're still going to have the snappy and responsive UI like you do in Svelte, and you can have as much as you want of that. You can make everything on the client side if you want and have no server side stuff. I probably wouldn't do that because that negates the purpose of using SvelteKit, but hey, you're you. You can do what you want. You're going to have smaller but more network calls. So instead of having that one large network call up front to get all the JavaScript you need, you're going to end up making multiple calls to go get more JavaScript because it kind of chunks it up and code splits it up. But it'll take less time for those calls to come back. The best part about SvelteKit is you have embedded API functionality. I mean, how awesome is that? You literally get to build APIs within your application. No more having to create another repository, another application, so like a Node Express app or a web API to deal with all your secure connections to databases and all that. You can do it securely within SvelteKit. Another cool thing is the routing. The routing is the file structure, and it does this in Next also. But it allows for easy routing, no more messing around with things like React Router. Furthermore, it does have to sit on a server and be dynamically on listening. It's not static files. So I know I showed this slide at the beginning of this video, and while it is there, I kind of lied to you. This is not a video about really Svelte and React, and is Svelte better than React? It's more of a video of server-side rendering. Do you use server-side rendering functionality? Do you use these newer frameworks that have server-side rendering? Or do you stick with your single-page applications? And the answer to that is pretty clear. in my opinion, these standards, the Next, the Nuxt, the SvelteKit, are in fact better. You just have more flexibility. The only thing, the one negative, is that they do have conventions, and so you do have to understand, like, behind the scenes what's going on, because they do abstract a lot of that away from you. So if you're a developer that really does not like that wants to know what is going on with each line of code, the functional code, you might not like this, but it does allow for the functionality to use server-side rendering and be more efficient. One last thing that I want to talk about is how both Svelte and React, the differences in how they change the DOM. So you might have heard the term VDOM or virtual DOM in association with React or any of these JavaScript frameworks. So back in 2013, React came out and said, hey, changing the virtual DOM is really quick, but changing the real DOM is exhaustive and intensive. And so what React does behind the scenes, it's got a virtual DOM that mirrors the real DOM. And so when changes are made, they're made on the virtual DOM, and then at the end of it all, there's a diff. And so the virtual DOM is diffed with the real DOM, or vice versa, and it compares the differences, and whatever differences there are, the virtual DOM then just slaps right on the actual DOM, and then it's updated, and it's faster that way. Well, Svelte, it's made where it doesn't need the virtual DOM overhead. It can just hook right into the values on the DOM and then do a diff right then and there and determine if the values itself are different and then change them. And in that way, Svelte is considered to be more optimal and have less technical overhead in the back end. So the question remains, why do people still choose React? And it's because of the fashion effect. And the fashion effect is very real. You know, why do you see people wearing some of the things that just are just out of style or something, or maybe not out of style, but like, people only wear certain things because other people are wearing it. So people are only choosing React because other people are choosing React, not because of popularity thing, but because there's just more of a base for React. So to solve your problems on Stack Overflow or YouTube videos is a lot easier. It's older, right? Svelte, relatively newer, and because of that, it's a lot harder to find solutions. And part of the reason of me making this video is to draw awareness to Svelte and to have people make some content about Svelte to solve people's problems, because it's real. We want some help out there, y'all. So the question's up to you. What do you think? Svelte or React? SvelteKit, Next, Nuxt? I mean, options are limitless. What are you going to choose? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think.